And I believe we are live. Yes, we are. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's show of Rebel TV. And it's called Oh Snap. And yes, you weren't supposed to know what it meant. There was a reason for that. Anyhow, we'll tell you that in a minute. I want to welcome Sarah Kaufman and Neve Arthur with me today. They are my guests. And if you two would take a minute to introduce yourselves, a little bit about where you're from, what you do, why you like life, you know, good stuff like that. Sarah?
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm not sure if I'm coming up on the screen right now. There we go. I think so. Hey, okay, I'm Sarah. I go by Sarah Kay. I'm currently in Seattle. I'm sort of a transplant. I'm from all over the place. I really like it that way. Yeah, I'm a rebel marketer, so this team fits really well with actually who I am. I'm sort of rebellious in general and kind of weird, and I'm really okay with that. A good example is online, like my blogs, I actually go by Awesome Sarah Kay because I'm awesome and I want everyone to know it, and I don't care if you agree with me. That's what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that and hand it over to Neve.
Okay, well, hello, I am Neve Arthur, and I am the mommy of the stay-at-home family. Also equally rebellious, I like to consider myself a little bit. I actually live in Ireland, so blocked out behind me at the moment is like this immense area of beautiful green, and it actually is as green in Ireland as they say. And yeah, we work from home, we live in like this beautiful setting, so it's awesome.
Cool, thanks. I had to figure out where my microphone button was. Okay, so most of us go through life with blinders on, not even thinking about what we can have because we're trapped in the day-to-day garbage that we've let become our life. I think pretty much everybody goes through this at some point. It's kind of the, you know, the get up, go to work, come home, eat, watch some TV, go to bed, repeat type thing. Some of us make it out of that haze and we start to dream. We think about what we'd like to have. Little things like a raise, a different house, maybe a vacation. Even fewer of us have learned to breach that and make goals out of our dreams. But then we sit at that point for a really long time, and it always seems to be just out of reach. They're like goals that are up there, but they just stay up there. So, Sarah, get you and my daughter mixed up here. Describe what that point feels like to you. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, that's a point I'm intimately familiar with at the moment. Like you said, I was at a point in my life where I was stagnant, and then I sort of made a couple significant jumps in my life, and I thought, hey, that's really cool. I can... Sorry about that. I don't know if you could hear that. Crazy talk going over there. So I made a couple significant jumps in my life, and everything was awesome, and I was like, hey, I can do stuff. So now I'm gonna reach higher. But I really hadn't done it consciously before, and so now I'm sort of in this place where I have goals that are out there, that are way up high, that are really exciting, but I feel like I'm just constantly reaching for them and not making the significant progress that I've seen myself make in the past. I think that answers your question.
Great, thanks. How about you, Neve? What did that look like for you, and how did it feel?
Oh, I can totally identify with this one. I think that that sometimes like dreaming feels really good, you know. So we could, you know, when you're thinking about the things that you want and what life is going to look like it's all rose-colored, it's all beautiful. So we feel good when we think about it, right? And then when you get to the actual reality of like, okay, now how the hell do you get from here to there? It's like such a big gap sometimes where it's like, oh, here feels horrible and there feels so amazing. So you fall into the trap of just sort of thinking about it, because the actions themselves are kind of like the in-between bridge where they don't actually feel all nice and shiny and rosy. The actions that get you to the dream, they're kind of like stepping stones in between. So while you're stepping on them, it's a little uncomfortable and awkward, and you're like, I'm not sure if this is the perfect step, and what if this one doesn't perfectly lead me there? And so I can totally relate to anyone who's out there who's like, have a dream, but you just feel like when you try and move towards it, you sort of feel like you're walking through jelly or something. I think that's what, for me, that when I was in that moment a couple years ago, that's almost exactly what it felt like. It was like, why is walking so difficult? That's how I would describe it.
I am so with both of you. And for me, a lot of times, it almost seemed like some of those stepping stones or some of the planks on the bridge, they were missing. So like I couldn't put my foot there, and I couldn't figure out how to make that next step. And it was really frustrating. So I kept staying in that one spot. Well, we all want to obtain our dreams. There's a reason we have them, and they tend to be very specific to us. A lot of people will borrow dreams from other people, but then after they can open their minds, they can more feel what they really want and what resonates with them. And even if they start out small, but our minds seem to get stuck in the planning stage. So Sarah, can you share what snapped into realization for you this past weekend? Because we had an amazing weekend with a lot of eye-opening breakthroughs. But share with us something that you shared with me on our way home about kind of what snapped you out of it or woke you up.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, as a little bit of background, my day job is as a project manager, and for those of you who know what that's actually like, it's planning, and that's pretty much all it is. So I come from this space where that's what I do constantly, is I'm constantly planning, and I'm coming up with very detailed plans, good plans. I'm not trying to downplay the plans, but I was finding myself, like you were saying, stuck in this planning phase and not actually making it. And that's kind of the funny thing about project managers is usually they're not the ones doing the work, they just do the planning and other people do the work. But that doesn't work very well in a home business. It's my business, I need to do the work. So what struck me at the event that I was telling you about, Katrina, was that there was a speaker in particular who said, I was constantly thinking about when I was going to get to my goals at this point in the future. And sorry, I'm getting a little distracted by tornado sirens that are on the video game in the background. So he was saying, I'm constantly seeing my goal 6 months in the future, and I was thinking when I get there. And instead of that doesn't work really. When you're constantly doing that, it's like everything is tomorrow or 6 months from now, and that's how I felt. And so he said, basically, I just made the decision that I was going to be there right now and just do the things that I would do as if I'd already achieved the goal. Like, just start doing it right now. And it seems really simple, but for me that was a really profound change in perspective. Rather than saying I'm working my way to this goal, I'm constantly working my way to it, just start doing what I would do, like, for example, to maintain the goal instead of from here to there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. We get caught up in that planning stage, and after a while it becomes kind of boring and it just gets monotonous, and we just keep seeing our dreams, and we almost wonder if we're ever going to make it, but we actually can obtain it a lot faster than we think we are. Neve, you have talked many times about when you actually you knew that moment when you were able to switch it over and make the future now. Can you talk about that a little bit for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sarah really nailed it pretty well there, Katrina, as well, where it is literally like all of a sudden you decide that you're already there. So you decide that you're going to be there no matter what. And the breakdown for most people is that you don't know what the path looks like. As you said, Katrina, you're walking along and you're like, well, there's a stepping stone missing. What do I do? Well, if you're going really slowly and carefully, you'll stop and stand there and freak out. Whereas if you just see yourself as being there and like imagine that there's like a dinosaur chasing you, looking really close in the rearview mirror, like in Jurassic Park or something, you start moving really fast. So yeah, as you said, it's like a switch flips where all of a sudden you go, oh, I am not Neve who's someday going to hit a goal. I am Neve, actually, at that point we were trying to become a stay-at-home family. We were trying to figure out how we could. I was on maternity leave, and we were trying to say, okay, how can we make sure that we don't have to go get jobs? So we said, well, okay, right now we are being the stay-at-home family. We already actually were in some of the circumstances that we wanted to create. We just had no way of maintaining them for longer than like a month or two max. So we're like, well, crap, we have to make this happen like right now. So yeah, it's like flipping a switch where it's like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I know I can do to get there. and then you start to like pretty much run. So rather than planning it perfectly, it's like, well, I don't know what perfect is, so I'll just do this. Like, so you plop down on whatever action you know will at least move you in that direction, and like go as hard as you can. And then as things come up, you know, like if you have momentum and then you get to a gap, you jump over the gap. You know, so it's like you can just keep moving because you know you're already there. And yeah, you still have to do the work, but instead of minutely planning, it's like you just pick annual plan of attack and then go with it full force, and you can adjust along the way as you learn. But it's just almost exactly what Sarah said was pretty much what it looked like for me right before I broke through. It was the same thing. I came home from an event. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it, and it all came together simply because I was like a rhinoceros, like charging through a forest. I was like, I do not care what you know. And we were talking about that the other day. I still quite often, when I go on a creation or a production mode where I'm working towards something, it's like being a rhinoceros. It's like you don't even notice the trees and the things you're trampling over. You're like, yeah, whatever, I'll fix it all when, like, eventually, you know. And then you put your head up and go, oh, you know, it's not the prettiest path I made, but it got me here. So.
I love how visual that was. Okay, so Neve, you're saying you don't have to have one path, that there's not only one path, that you could pick any path and go?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Anything that you know is going to move you closer. Like when I started mine, like the Rebels actually are so much better equipped because we've learned from each other, and we've got some amazing marketers who are teaching each other marketing. But the downside of knowing good marketing is that then you're like, oh, which is the perfect path? Like, I had no idea. So I was like, well, crap, I know that blogging works, so I just blogged my butt off. Like, I blogged 5 times a day for a month until I was like, whoa, okay, this is not the most perfect thing, but man, at that point I could knock out a blog really quick, and then I could layer in the other stuff I was learning as I went. And I know as well, like, as you said, I share this a lot, but that was such an incredible breakthrough moment because the 1 month, the first month that I was actually just working really hard, I saw next to no actual results. You know, at that point I had like 4 signups in that month. But then the second month of continuing the charge, not even noticing whether I was getting results or not, I actually had 50 people sign up with me in the second month. So it's just one of those things where you're charging forward, not really paying attention to the details and going, I can go on any direction. You just have to plunk down on one and just run, pretty much.
I think a lot of us get hung up on that. It has to be perfect. I have to have it lined out step-by-step type thing before I can even take that first step. And that's really hard, and it hinders us in a big way. Tell us, Sarah, when you had your breakthrough over this past weekend, how it changed you physically, mentally, emotionally. What snapped for you?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, it was a huge relief. Like, I just felt so much less pressure because I was in that mode of trying to pick the perfect thing to get me to where I wanted to go. And I realized that in a sort of funny way that was kind of backwards for me. You know, I really don't want to come up with this crazy complicated way to get where I want to go. And so it was such a huge relief, and I was like, well, I can just act like I'm there now, honestly. And so, like, I glanced over my whiteboard when Neve was talking because it makes me feel awesome. But I look over at this whiteboard, and I just wrote down, what would I do every day if I was already at my goal? And start doing that. And yeah, there are pieces where maybe my structure isn't quite in place, but it's listing what I want to do every day makes it really, really clear. The little tiny things I just need to, you know, plunk into place right now to get that actually rolling. And honestly, feeling as if I feel like I've already reached my goal, it's so relaxing. I don't have anything to worry about. I just need to do what I know I need to do to maintain that. And yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool. It's such a different way of looking at it that I'm not used to doing that. I'm a planner by nature, or I don't want to say that planning always has to be that painful because I don't think it has to. But yeah, it's just a totally new, revolutionary kind of planning. I think it's really cool.
So letting go of a lot of that extra cobwebby stuff kind of was a sense of relief for you then.
Definitely, yeah.
That's really cool. Cool. How about you, Neve? When you hit that point where you kind of crossed over, how did it change you? How did you feel physically or mentally or emotionally different? What snapped for you in place?
Oh, it's like felt completely different. It's like there was a whole new person inside my head, and this is true. There's still continually two Neves, right? So when I want to create content or when I'm going on like working on my business, it's like I flip a switch where it's like then I go into what I've named this person in my head, Leader Neve, and Leader Neve has always achieved whatever goal I'm working on at the moment, and so then I go into that mode of like, oh, she's got this, she's already there. Sometimes it takes away some of the like the lack of confidence, the self-doubt, that like, oh, I don't know if I can do this or not, and you just kind of find yourself behaving more powerfully. Like actually, I was a huge procrastinator when I was in school, but I always knew that in the end, like I could pull out all the stops and turn in something great, So when I was in college, I would like turn in papers that I'd written starting at 3 a.m. the night before because I would like hem and haw and worry about it, and then finally I'd go, you know what? I just need to have something to physically hand in, and it was like a flip would switch, and I would get something out, and it wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be like winning Pulitzer prizes, but man, it would do what it needed to do. It would take the box, and quite often actually I'd get better marks for the ones that I just pulled out of my ass at the last second. So I discovered that was in me, and it's in most people. And I think if you're ever stuck in the planning stages, bring out your inner procrastinator, that person who knows that they can just get it done, put away any idea of being perfect, and just create whatever you need to create so that you're moving as quickly as possible. So now I try and think, like today I had to record 4 videos, and I was worrying about it over the last few days. It was like in the back of my head, and I was like, oh, I don't know, oh, maybe this one should go like this, and this one should, and then finally I was like, you know what, they have to be done today no matter what. And so now they're recorded. I don't know if they're the most perfect things ever, but they're there, they're done. And I think that's the only way you can create a really solid business, is to just constantly be moving forward. Because if you don't have, even if it's not perfect, if you don't have something there, no one's going to ever be able to experience your content or sign up with you. You have to like actually physically have something out there to do it, whether it's perfect or not.
Isn't it funny how when you work your tail off on something and you put like every ounce of energy you have into it, and it gets like a tiny bit of interest or nothing, but then you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 5 minutes, and you slam it down really quick, and you're like typing out, and you set, you whatever you're doing with it, whether it be a video or written, and it just pulls everything from everywhere. It's like, what the heck? It just doesn't.
I think it's just knowing that you can turn it on at any point. Then that's been invaluable. I mean, at the first month of doing it, I didn't have a switch. I was just like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing. And then after about a month, I was like, oh, I can just go into my blog writing mode. And now it's like, oh, I can just go into video mode. And then it was, oh, I can go into live mode. And actually, several months ago, I was at an event, and our company founder called me on stage and suddenly was like, hey, you've been wanting to speak on stage, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, here's the microphone. You've got 10 minutes. And in that moment, I was like, oh, shit. Like, what am I going to do? But I instantly was like, okay, I've got this. And the flip switched, and I had, okay, I can just turn on stage mode. And the truth is that anyone can have any of those things. The first couple times, it doesn't feel like flipping a switch. It feels clunky and awkward. But then you create the switch by doing the work, and then after a while, it's like you've got it and you know what to do in each situation. It doesn't come from that you're magically wonderful. It comes from that you've practiced. Like doing live calls meant that I could get on a stage and go, okay, I guess I'm shooting from the hip now,
I remember that he told you that, and you had the microphone, and you looked at him, you just gave him this deadpan look, and you're like, and then you just turned and you went right into it, and you just literally snapped into it. It was incredible. It's like, oh, that was really cool.
That was crazy.
Okay, so one thing that I wanted to point out is you said Leader Neve. Now, if I remember correctly, you had at one point when you pictured what now is Leader Neve, you actually pictured somebody else, didn't you? That you kind of looked towards as being who you wanted to listen to, but then after a while you changed that into yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, it would kind of like mix and match a little bit. Like I had a person in me that I knew could handle being this leader, but then I would sometimes doubt myself, you know. So I would actually envision an incredibly powerful female leader from our company that I knew her. I'd gotten to meet her at an event. I'd shaken her hand. I was like, I feel like I know you. So she used to live inside my head. She doesn't actually know this. But she also used to spend some time hanging out in my head, telling me things. So I'd be like, okay, well, what would she do in this instance? And sometimes separating it out from myself made me trust the instincts a little bit more too. Because you're kind of working more on gut feeling when you're in this charging rhinoceros mode than you are working on like the logical planning side, you know, as Sarah was saying.
And then after a while, you were able to just put yourself into that spot, and you became that person.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so we are just about out of time, but real quick, I wanted to ask both of you, since you have been able to switch over, tell me, have your dreams heightened? Have they changed? Have they morphed in any way? Neve, start with you.
Yeah, I think that one of the most interesting things is that when you start to realize you can have anything, it becomes hard to narrow down onto specific things. So like at first, you know, I was narrowly focused on one dream. Then I had that and it was like sort of like wobbly for a little bit of like, well, what do I do now? And so then it's like letting stuff sort of come into focus in terms of realizing at higher and higher levels what you can do. I think the big mistake some people make is envisioning their 5-year goal, their 5-year dream, going, someday, you know, I'm going to be like this, I'm going to live on a beach, everything's going to be perfect, but they haven't envisioned what could you do in 3 months' time? Like maybe you could get a new car, maybe you could retire yourself, maybe you could buy your mom something that you've always wanted to buy her, you know, like there's all these smaller steps, dream steps, on the way to the big dream, and sometimes if you can hone it in a little to focus on those things, it gives you the power on a daily basis to do the work you need to do. You know, like right now I'm working on a new car that I want to have, and I know exactly what it's like, and I know when I want to have it by, and it, you know, I want to have it from excess money. I don't want to scrimp and save, and I want to just go and get it with cash, with excess money that's just totally easy. In the same month that I'm taking trips home to visit my family, like I've got this all planned out. So it's very easy to envision it because it's something that I can see is within the reach within a couple of months, rather than being this like, in 5 years' time I'll be sitting on a beach somewhere, because that doesn't make me want to work today, you know? Yeah,
that's fantastic. It can make an absolutely huge difference. So, Sarah, how about you? Has it changed your dreams at all?
A little bit. I don't know if it's changed them necessarily more than it's just clarified them, because before I was in that space of, yeah, I want everything, you know, because it was vague, and it was at least 6 months away in my mind, and so I think that made things more difficult. But once I stepped into that space of, well, I'm just going to act like I'm there now, suddenly that's when things became clear, because instead of having this huge, vague, lofty goal of everything, I was like, well, I have that. What specifically do I want to get now? And so that's really helped me to set some of those smaller piece goals, basically, because it's not really separate from the big goal. It's part of it, really. But I think that's really helped me to clarify what goals I want to go and reach in certain periods of time, and in what order, I guess.
So the change for your goals has been it's brought it into more focus then, I would say, probably, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, we are out of time, so if both of you would like to maybe give just like one simple statement to our listeners on how to step into now, opposed to just still looking forward to it, what would you say, Sarah?
I would say, as silly as it sounds, you have to do the visualization. You have to do the pretend. In your mind, imagine really what it feels like and what it looks like and what you're going to be doing. I know a lot of people who are really analytical and feel like they're more realists, and I've been that person before, but success leaves clues, guys, and the people who are successful, they do this exercise where they visualize and they pretend that they already are where they're going to be. So do it. It really does help you.
Great, thanks. Neve?
I would say my main piece of advice would be just charge. You know, just pick a direction, know where you're going to end up, and like see yourself as like that rhino running through the woods. There's going to be obstacles, and you're going to crash through them, and you know you might like leave some mess in your wake, but and I'm not talking about like people mess. I'm not talking about crashing through people in your life. I mean, in terms of not everything is going to be set up perfectly. It's the people who create success are the people who just run for it. So if I could tell you anything, it's just go and charge. Just pick a direction and go.
Thanks both of you. I really appreciate it. I love being with guests on this show that are really energetic, because it really those are the ones that are the go-getters. Those are the ones that you're gonna watch succeed, and they're the ones that are going to pave the way, whether it's clean or not, on the way to their goals. And I would like to invite you to get back with the person that invited you to come watch us today. There's probably a link below this video on the page you're on. Click on that and you can find out some more information, and I'm sure they can answer any questions that you might have that would come up. But please join us again tomorrow, same time, and we'll have another topic to talk on. So take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.